Another important dimension of the apology is the following. It was widely understood that if you were on trial in ancient Athens, and I should mention, by the way, that in those days your jury consisted of 501 of your fellow Athenians, all of whom had to be landowners, so this was a highly elitist society by contemporary standards, and these 501 jurors would sit in a sort of auditorium watching you make your defense and considering other things that would happen as be brought forward as evidence concerning your trial. But often what would happen would be the person who has been accused, the defendant, would bring their family onto the stage in front of everybody and beg for mercy, tear their clothes, pour ashes over their head, that kind of thing, and supplicate themselves to the jury, and often the jury would respond with a relatively lenient sentence. Socrates is not willing to do that. He's not willing to give up on any of his principles, any of the things that he thinks are important about his life. He knows, for example, that if he were to promise to stop going around the agora, stop asking people questions about truth and justice and virtue and knowledge, that people would probably, his jurors would probably let him off with a fairly light sentence on the condition that he stopped asking these philosophical questions. But he says, I'm not going to stop doing philosophy just in order to be acquitted. He says, men of Athens, I'm grateful and I'm your friend, but I will obey the God, that is the God that gave him his answer at the oracle, rather than you. And as long as I draw breath and am able, I'm going to exhort you in my usual way. So it's referring to the idea that he could probably get a light sentence if he promised not to stop talking philosophy with others, but he's not willing to do that because he thinks that this is essentially his mission in life, is to understand and seek for answers to these questions. He remarks at one point that he thinks that he was attached to the city by the god like a gadfly to a noble steed. A gadfly might make a noble steed run around, move, get more excited, perhaps more agitated, and Socrates wants to do the same thing to the city of Athens, whose citizens he thinks have become perhaps a little bit lazy, dogmatic, self-satisfied, complacent. He wants to try to provoke people to get them to think harder about the questions that are important. And at this point he also remarks, the unexamined life is not worth living. One of the most famous remarks in all of Western philosophy, the unexamined life is not worth living.